video help, I'm going to be covering the property listing screen. You have two ways to get there. You can either pick the fast way, which is this button here, or you can go over and look through the different items that are in here as far as finding it. Now, obviously, the quickest way is usually the way you would probably take, but when you're in sub-screens where there's smaller screens like list views and stuff like that, then this is the ideal way to find all those different screens. So let's go ahead and go over there and click on the property listing, and we're in the customer information and we're navigating, like I said, left to right, and now we're in the customer property listing record. Now, obviously you need to have a customer before you can do any listings. And when a customer comes to you and they're either a buyer or a seller, there's going to be a listing situation if they're a seller. So you need to have a property that you're looking for to add to the system. So every time you add a new listing, you would come to this screen, and in this particular case, these are not screens that are tied directly back to the customer screen. They're independent standing records that are used to identify properties. Now, ideally, the best way to do this screen is to use the MRLS listings, and here's where you would use this button to click on. If you copy the URL from the top of your browser and paste it into this little field right here, this blue field, you don't even have to see all the information. You can scroll to see it all if you needed to, but basically what that is going to take you, when you click on this icon, it'll take you to the MRLS. Now, there are ways to do multiple MRLSs, and I have one here, and the way that works is if I click on this, it's going to take me to a website that has all the listings within a certain city based on a multiple listing that is a larger multiple listing than some of the ones that just have local listings. So you can go in, and in fact, this one actually allows you to look all over the US and look in areas where you might want to find a listing. That being said, let's move on. In this case, this has a customer status for this particular property that we're looking at as far as the listing, and setting that, in this case, you can see up here, if I'm going in and I'm the person that actually listed this property and I'm getting ready to sell it, I'm the seller of the property, then my name would be on here as far as the drop down. So I would pick the seller, in this case, from the list of people that are in the record. When you create the new record, first thing you do is add the listed by client. That way it ties it, the listing person for the seller, to this record. It will fill in some of the information. The next thing you would do, the automatic ID is put in the sequence through, and that's not something you would add or edit. You would put in the property address and all the address information, including the telephone for the broker and the listing broker information, the MRLS number. Those are required in this so that you'd be able to find the property when you come back to this particular location. By the way, this icon up here is used throughout the application to say that you can add records in this field or in this screen. And unless they have a new record button built right onto the screen, for example, if you're on the iPad and you're in one of the other screens and it does not have a new record button, do not create them on the iPad, because that's a child record and this is a parent record, where parent records have a reason to be added to as far as new records are concerned. A subscreen of this would probably be something like these, that are created in this parent record, where you're creating photographs of the property. In this case, we've got a little bug up there as far as the guy in there. But these would be pictures, and you can put as many in there as you'd like as far as adding property information. You can fill up the 4 and then scroll down and add more if you want to. So you can have multiple pictures. You can have every room in the listing if you wanted to, and outside as far as items are concerned. And you would put a title on each one of these showing what they are, as far as the room and the location, northeast side, garden, whatever, garage, whatever. So that would be put in here. And you can take the iPad or a camera. If you take a camera, you can put them into the iPad library and put them right in there. If you're on the browser, you can go to your desktop. And the way you do that is you click on the picture and you say Insert Picture. And the way that works is that if you insert the picture from the iPad, it'll ask you to insert it from the photo library. And on the desktop, like I'm on a Macintosh, it will have you insert it from the desktop and give you a dialog to pick the picture you want to put in there. Like I said, you can title each picture. This has a ID number that you won't change. It's automatically inserted by each time in fact, it's actually the parent record would give it this ID up here, which is the property number ID, and that's based on this client. Okay. The next thing you would do is go to the property offer. Now, in the property offer, this is where it kind of gets really kind of unique as far as the ability to find and keep information. If you're going to make an offer on a piece of property, you could fill out all the information in this area and it'll calculate everything. This is a lot of the stuff you normally do in paperwork, but this is all calculated for you. For example, the list price of the property, a list price that has been reduced. You would put in the property buyer's offer, the earnest money that's going to be added, and the pre-approval. In this case, you would put in the pre-approval amount as far as what is required in order to get the thing to go through. It's using all the information you're putting in to calculate property data. For example, if you're doing a note and you're going to be carrying a first, second, or a carry-on loan, where say like the property owner is doing it, or an other type of loan where you're carrying it from a family member or something like that, or you have a buyer real trade where you're actually trading properties back and forth, you put all those values in here. And this would be earnest money in the amount due at down, earnest money at the amount due for the second, earnest amount due for the down at the closing, and the down for in other would be something that would come up in these fields for something that would be other than something you'd expect, like maybe a relative gave some money for the down and you want to put that money in there. Earnest money amount in the down, real property. In this case, it'd be a property value that would be put in there for the amount. What it'll do is it'll summarize all the information and calculate it and come up with the answer of the sum amount on the loan that will be due. The next thing is the seller's property is a counter. If there's a counter property in the offer, you would put the counter in there, and then you would put the seller's earnest money required in order to get to that particular differential, and then you'd have the property other differential in here. Now, I'm going to actually show another record here that has data in it in a second, but I want to go through it when it's still blank. Now you have after the loan downs, and you put the actuals in here and then come up with the sums minus the financing and downs, and takes all the different calculations here and comes up with the actual balance that's due. Then there would be the actual buyer move-in date, the seller move-in date required. The seller wants to wait or hold you off for a certain period of time, or he will allow you to come in. This is the desired date, the actual seller's date that he needs to have you earlier than. And then the broker percent, the broker's amount of fee, the seller's loan balance after everything is included in the costs of things here, and then seller's net amount, and then a place for notes. Now let's go ahead and look at another record, and I can do that by going to the next record. And you'll see that now I've got fields all filled in here with data. So you can see the kind of things that would be put in here. For example, the seller property counter was, instead of the 412, the seller counted with 418 based on the 421 that was originally in the offer. The seller's earnest money is $40,000. As far as he requires $40,000 for earnest money. And then there would be a property offer differential of $6,000 between the actual amount that was supposed to be in the offer and the differential after the offer. So there's a $6,000 spread. That's really important when you're sitting and talking to somebody. You can very quickly bring up those numbers and be able to quote them back at them. The buyer's loan first was $310. The buyer's second was $108 for $418. And then there's going to be another earnest money at the down of $30,000. And then it gives you the follow-on numbers and gives you the calculation. It says that the sum on the finance minus the downs would be $388. Based on a sum of $418, it comes directly over. The date that the buyer wants to move in, the seller wants to hold off until the 23rd. The broker's fee amount based on the actual balances due, the seller's loan balance, and the total amount that after all the balances of loan downs and stuff, the seller's net. So this is what the seller is actually making off of this. So you get an idea of what everything is after the loan. And you can see, you can scroll down and you can continue to add additional offers as you need to. So if you had a counter and you had to run the whole thing again, you could run a separate one. Or this could be an offer that you're making contingent upon or whatever. So you might have one that's a straightforward offer and a contingent offer, that so that you as the agent or the buyer would have the options right in front of them in case you had to shift to another offer format. This would be the secondary go-to. Or you can have as many as you want. It's up to you. The next one is the financing. And this again is very similar to the last screen, where it has the sum of the amount financed, the escrow company, the lawyer used if you have a lawyer, the lawyer company, and if there's a fee for the lawyer, there'd be a lawyer's start and end dates and the costs that are related to the escrow and the start times and dates. And then there's all the different finances that you're going to have to do. And for example, if you had a first, second, or another loan, you would put the appropriate, all that information in here. And then this differentiates where they're going to go to and what the money that is being put forward and the notes are, and if once they are funded for the approval. And then these are the owner carries. If you have terms and conditions for owner carry, for example, like paying some of the closing costs or whatever, you put notes in there to that effect so that when you finance it, you have all those little pieces all on one page in the same place. This is a nice little pop-up here. This is a running situation where it's going to show you the total amount of all of your sales, and you can see the exact amounts based on the dates of your sales, and it's going to keep on going across here. And this bar chart will get kind of skinny after a while if you sell a lot of homes, but you'd have all the different ones. Now you can do a find in here to find a specific property on the prior page, and then come over here and look at that information if you needed to. Let's go back to the property listing, and we're back in the listing again. The information down below that we almost skipped over is the full description from the MRLS if you have a listing information, and then you can check the blocks as far as the items that are in there. Now, it's appropriate very quickly to see them this way because they're actually going to show up on a form when we get that far with all this information in it. So let's go to the payment calcs. This is where you're actually calculating for the buyer the amounts of the loans, the percentage of the interest rate, the total months, and it's going to give you a monthly amount. Now, if you combined all the different kinds of loans you can have, you would see the different summary down here where it shows the sum finance and the actual amount for a monthly payment. There's also a summary of payments over the term where you put in the information here, and what it does is it'll bring up those calculated totals with the information that you put up here. And then it would give you a sum of the grand total of all your payments. So there's quite a bit of information in here. Plus these are just keys to show you the kind of thing that would go in the fields above, like the term of 48 months or whatever. In this case, 360 and 180 for the loans that are in there. And this would equal the payment over here on this side. And then sum of monthly payments would be down here. So it just takes a little bit of fooling around and having fun with this in order to make it work and getting used to it. The last thing is something kind of unique. This is called a data portal. What the data portal allows you to do is to add, say for example, you have certain forms or pieces of paper or whatever, you can actually take a picture and then insert the picture in here, and then when you go to the larger data, it'll actually allow you to read that data and keep it stored in here. So if you had paperwork that you were doing and you wanted to be able to store it in many different records, you could put it in here and save that information and have it readily at your fingertips instead of having to carry all the paper with you. That would give you the information that you wanted to put in here. And the way this works is explained right here. And if it's a URL that you put in here, for example, like you have a certain website that you want to go to, you could click this button to have it open whatever is in this screen as a URL, or to insert the image or graphic or picture in here. In this case, these were from it'll look like this if you move from one computer to another and you no longer have the file there. But for example, I can click on this and insert a picture in here from my desktop, and that would put the picture in there so that I would have that picture available to me to show it in that field. If it were a PDF screen file, if you just do a snapshot of the image of it, you could put page by page in here and have the image of those different items in this data portal. Just a very nice way as an extra to have those kind of things that you might want to keep in the records. So let's go ahead and cover the last few things on here. Once again, as the seller, in this case is a seller, obviously they're going to be a seller unless they're an agent or a banker, where the banker is actually, this is maybe a short sale or whatever. You'd want to have the banker information in here, and you want to identify that if it's in here, that that's actually a banker, which would mean you'd have to have a banker parent record to be able to list for that banker. So you'd have to create the banker record. As with before, if you click on the different buttons over here, it'll move you through the different screens, or you can use the find to start a find, and then any information up here in this area that you put in, or anything that's not in a portal. In this case, all the fields in here that are not in portals, you could search on any of those tabs or any of the data that's in those tabs to find information. So it's kind of a global way to be able to find information in there. In this case, this record you can see actually has pictures of the property, and in the different screens it has the house is under construction. So this would be a new construction in this particular case. And the current status is writing a listing. In the other case, it could be showings being done, writing an offer, and whatever. That way you'd be able to see the last status on this particular piece of property that was being done based on the client that is up here. Okay, if you have any other questions or need assistance, like I said before, you can go to the support site and get a question through the question on the FAQs answered by sending and include your email on that. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those. You have free support on this application, always at no fee. Thank you.